with lighting the chalice. It's our tradition in the Unitarian Church. It started in the Second World War, where a button with a flaming chalice was used by a group that was trying to smuggle people out of Eastern Europe during the Second World War. It will be lit by Leah Wendt and will be read by Valerie Brown.
Each morning we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, and to give back. Dag Hammarskjöld.
Sing quietly or hum. Thy light glowing, show to us beauty, wisdom, and joy. Janeen.
Our opening reading is an excerpt from Song of the Open Road by Walt Whitman. Afoot and light-hearted, I take to the open road, healthy, free, the world before me, the long brown path before me leading wherever I choose. Henceforth, I ask not good fortune, I myself am good fortune. Henceforth, I whimper no more, postpone no more, need nothing. Done with indoor complaints, libraries, querulous criticisms, strong and content, I travel the open road. The earth, that is sufficient. I do not want the constellations any nearer. I know they are very well where they are. I know they suffice for those who belong to them. Still here I carry my old delicious burdens. I carry them, men and women. I carry them with me wherever I go. I swear it is impossible for me to get rid of them. I am filled with them, and I will fill them in return.
Thank you, Valerie, for sharing that. I'm here today. I'm going to do a little short sharing moment. We have, okay. So today, our topic is the things we carry on the way. We heard Walt talk a little bit about that. My sharing moment is entitled Cat Burglars and Pilgrims. And you may be wondering, what do those two things have in common? And it is a little bit of a traveling thing we're going to do. So next slide, please. Here we go. So in the movie Shrek, has anybody seen, I think it's actually Shrek 2, okay. There's a scene where Shrek, the ogre, Donkey, who is a donkey, they were really creative with the name there, and Puss in Boots are on a quest to get a magical potion that is at the top of a very tall library shelf. Well, obviously an ogre can't climb and donkeys aren't very good at that either, so they turn to Puss in Boots. We would show you the video clip, but Disney has strong rules about copyright. So there's Puss, and Puss exclaims, they say, Puss, can you get to the top of the shelf? And he says, imagine I'm Antonio Banderas, if you would. Of course, I was once in one of my 9 lives, the great cat burglar of Santiago de Compostela. And that's what cat Puss in Boots does. So when I watched this with my kids, it came out a while ago, and my kids said, he's the what of where? And so we talked a little about what a cat burglar was, and then they said, well, what's this something? And it went by a little fast, and it's in a foreign language, so we had no idea what it was. So we looked it up, because that's what we did. And we found out that Santiago de Compostela is in the corner of Spain. You can see it there. And it's a big city with a cathedral. And how far away is it, my kids wanted to know. We could switch to the next slide. There we go. And you can see it is quite a long way from Kentucky. To get to it, you'd have to go all the way across the ocean. Well, first you have to get, away from Kentucky, all the way across the Atlantic Ocean to the coast of Spain. It's about 4,000 miles or 6,400 kilometers. So a long way from us. Well, okay, so now we knew where it was. We still didn't know what it was. So what is this Santiago de Compostela? Next slide. And one of the reasons it was hard for us to understand is because it's a couple of words kind of squished together in addition to being in a foreign language. And if we break it down just a little, Santiago, there's the Sant, is one part of it, and Iago, and then D, which means of in many languages, and then Campo, and then Stella. Sorry, the red didn't show up very well there. And if we split that into separate words, it's Sant, Iago, D, Campo, Stella. Okay. We've got a couple more pieces to work with. Next slide, please. Who is Santiago? And that in Spanish is how you say Saint James. Okay, and there's a picture of Saint James, and here's some more pictures of Saint James. He lived a really long time ago. Nobody knows what he looked like. He was one of Jesus's disciples, and there's a bunch of them there. Nobody knows what they look like either. That's just somebody drawing pictures. And this is some other pictures people have drawn up of Saint James. Now, St. James, after Jesus died, traveled, many of the apostles and disciples, they left and they went out into the world, the Roman Empire part of it anyway, to share the news and the story of Jesus. St. James went to Spain. We've heard of Spain before. And this shows you some of the places the apostles went to. And James went all the way over to Spain there in the end. He died in Jerusalem. He'd gone back to Jerusalem and he died there. But the people in Spain remembered him, and so they took his bones to Spain, and they buried him in Spain. And so they put up a marker where his bones were, a gravestone. And one of the words for that is stela. It's mostly archaeologists use that word. We don't. I haven't met many people who use it in everyday conversation. But that's where Compostela comes from. It's the field of the gravestone. Now, sometimes people mistranslate that as Stella with two L's, and they think it means field of stars, but it's usually just spelled with a one. So, Santiago de Compostela, next page, is the field of the grave of St. James. And so that is where you get that long name, Santiago de Compostela, which sounds much better when you say it all smooth like that. So many people would go visit his tomb and pray to St. James or honor him. And of course, there are many paths to get to Santiago de Compostela. And here you can see some of the trails that most people took. And they all, in Spanish, they don't say travel, they don't say road, they say camino. That's another word for road. So the Camino de Santiago de Compostela gets you, it's the way of St. James, and it gets you there. And we'll be talking more about that during the main part of the service. And next slide. So originally there was just a marker, and they said, hey, let's build a church. So about 1,000 years ago, they started building a church, a cathedral, and it took them about 200 years, and they have finished it, and you can still visit it today. A very large church. Okay, very pretty. Next. So we still haven't gotten to, we got to cat burglar. We haven't gotten to pilgrim yet. The Spanish word for traveler to a sacred place is peregrino, or peregrina if it's a woman. Next slide. And peregrino, through the magic of language word shifting, we're going to drop the letters that are red, the E and the O. We're going to change the letters in blue, and you can turn peregrino, and the R turns into an L, because R's and L's are hard to say together, and we get pilgrim. Peregrino becomes pilgrim in our language. And so someone who is traveling on the way to St. James de Compostela is a pilgrim. Now, we may think of that kind of pilgrim when we hear the word pilgrim. Those people were pilgrims. They were trying to go to a new place. But a pilgrim is someone who is looking for a sacred space. And all of us, just by coming here this morning, okay, it's a mini pilgrim, but we are pilgrims too. We came here looking for a sacred space or a sacred time together. So thank you all for being pilgrims. And we will talk a little bit more about what it is to be a pilgrim later on. Okay. And I think now is silent meditation time. So, John?
Now we'll have a period of silence, meditation, prayer, and at the end we will sing Spirit of Life. Sing quietly or hum. Follow the bell into silence. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, bringing life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
We're going to do a shared reading, and it's called New Year's Day, number 544 in your hymnal, in your gray hymnal. New Year's Day was yesterday, but I figure we're close enough. So you're invited to read along as you like. I'm going to definitely be doing the Roman, and you all can join me or read the italics or both. The first day of January is another day dawning, then sun rising as the sun always rises, the earth moving in its rhythms. So it is. Everything is the same, bound into its history as we ourselves are bound.
Yet also we stand at the threshold. The new year is something truly new, still unborn, leaving its filling power in our hands.
What shall we do with this great gift of time this year?
Let us begin by remembering that whatever justice, whatever peace and wholeness might bloom in our world this year.
Okay. We are the hearts and minds, the hands and feet, the embodiment of all the best visions of our people. The new year. Let us take the step forward together on to new ground. Thank you. The things we carry on the way. That's the title of the talk today. And it was inspired by a conversation I had with my family. Pre-COVID times, we had gathered in a large group. And my niece was talking about going on a hiking trip. And she said, there's this great thing called luggage carry, and they carry your stuff for you. So you could go on a multi-day trip And after you've hiked for 10, 15, 20 miles, when you get to the hotel you're staying at, your stuff is there, waiting for you. Concierge service, door to door. You can go hiking, and the stuff is carried. And she said, that sounds great. And certainly it sounds appealing to many of us. You know, if you wanted to do a multi-day hike, carrying a pack is a lot of stuff. And for some of us, it's just not physically possible. We can't carry all that much stuff. But after we talked about that, and she was talking about where she was going to go, and she was really excited she was going to go with friends and everything. And then later on, my sister, Kate, and I were talking, and she said, you know, I hiked the Camino in Spain, and I carried my own stuff every day. And she said, and I learned a lot by carrying my own stuff instead of having someone else carry it for me. And so we talked a little bit about what it means to carry your own stuff. Next slide. So again, we've seen this slide before, the Camino. Now, Camino just means road, but a lot of times when people say the Camino, many of them are referring to this, I'll have my zapper, the little strip at the top. The northern route across the northern edge of Spain, and it's called the French Camino. Thank you so much. Because you can start actually in France. I think there's a zapper here. Yeah, right there. A lot of people decide to skip that part because you have to go kind of over the Pyrenees Mountains, and that's a real tough way to start your walk. And then they'll walk this path down to Santiago de Compostela. Of course, there were many other routes that people can take. That one just sort of happens to be the most popular. It has been put into books and movies. Here's one of the books loaned to me by Diane. Thank you so much. Very interesting. And so, and it also has a lot of the infrastructure that was developed during the Middle Ages. That people started doing these pilgrimages. They were very popular. I don't know, starting in about 1,000, I guess, people started traveling. And so there are little inns and hostels, albergues, every 10 or 15 miles, which is about as far as anyone wants to walk in a day. And so it's designed for the walker. Now, some of these other paths are still there. They may not have as many places to stop. They may not be as well marked. Of course, this is not the only pilgrimage route people had. Oh, this is one of the markers they use. This is the scallop shell. It's kind of a stylized scallop shell that looks like a sunburst on its side. And so it's well posted, and somebody has left their boots, maybe they didn't fit, and marked it with little rocks. This is one of the things you might find as you travel on the Camino, is you eat together in groups. You just meet people on the way, everybody ends up at the same place, and you share a meal. And the next day everybody starts walking again. Maybe they walk faster than you or slower than you. Maybe you'll meet up again in 3 days, maybe never see them again. So it's a very fluid kind of visiting and learning to meet new people on the way. And this is from my sister's collection. This is one of the albergues she stayed in. The accommodations can be fairly sparse, especially if you're trying to save money. They do have more elaborate hotels sometimes. Some places advertise, vegetarian food, all kinds of stuff. One guy has, he does foot massage, which, as you can imagine, is quite popular for people hiking 10 miles a day. And the scenery is gorgeous. It's a beautiful sight. This is my nephew hiking. And this is some of the artwork you might see on the way. They have decorated the trail. And these are, I think, just silhouettes of people marching. There's another scene along this hike, and up at the ridgeline they've put these great big windmills that generate power. And so there's a lot of jokes about Don Quixote when you pass that side. Again, many places of pilgrimage. This is, of course, not the only one. You've probably heard of the Canterbury Tales, a collection of stories. They were pilgrims on their way to Canterbury, which is a cathedral on the southeast corner of England, and they were telling stories to each other as they spent the night in a hostel. Of course, many traditions have pilgrimages. Mecca is a big pilgrimage, very popular today. Jerusalem, many people go to Jerusalem. It's a sacred spot, and so they're there to visit the Holy Land. And of course, it doesn't have to be buildings. The River Ganges is a place of pilgrimage. Many pilgrimage places all around the world. Boston. For Unitarian Universalists, that's where the Unitarians got started. And so many youth groups go there as a pilgrimage. And they visit some of our historical sites, maybe see the headquarters, that kind of thing. And so Boston can be a place of pilgrimage. If you're looking to do American Revolution, and that is sacred to you, that might be another place to go, Boston, to see some of the sites there. And again, as I mentioned during our little talk earlier, we are pilgrims. Just by coming here today, you have become a pilgrim, at least for an hour, hour and a half. A journey often into an unknown or foreign place, and if you've ever visited a new church, that's exactly what it feels like. It's unknown, it's foreign, a little scary. You're seeking expanded meaning about yourself, spiritual guidance, perhaps. And so all of that comes in. So every time you go to a church, you're becoming a pilgrim. Journeys, of course, can take different forms. There's the physical journey, there's emotional journeys, spiritual journeys, and a journey through time as we go through our lives. We're all changing and growing and learning and seeking new and different ways to connect with the spiritual. Ernest Hemingway said, it's good to have an end to the journey towards, but it is the journey that matters in the end. So you may think you know where you're going. You may have plans. You may even have, MapQuest and everything worked out in your Google phone and everything. And on the journey through life, we don't always get where we think we're going. We don't even have to change our feet. You can wake up. An accident, a death, or tornado, and all of a sudden the path you were on is totally different. You may not have moved at all, but the earth, the world around you has changed. And so we think we know where we're going. Pilgrimage, usually they have, I'm going there. But sometimes that's not where we end up. And that's part of the challenge, is learning to deal with that and accept that and find fun things to do along the way. Life is a camino. Life is a journey. The camino of life, of course, doesn't have signposts. We're not sure where we're going. It doesn't have those cute little yellow arrows telling you this way. In fact, it may not even have a road. You may get somewhere and there's no obvious way to move forward. And sometimes you turn around, and that's okay. It reminds me of a song. This is from a musical. Clint Eastwood can sing. I don't know if any of you knew that, but this is Paint Your Wagon. And there's a song at the beginning as the guys are traveling, and it goes, I'm not going to sing it for you because I don't, but where am I going? I don't know. Where am I heading? I ain't certain. All I know is I am on my way. Next verse. When will I be there? When will I get there? All I know is I am on my way. It's a fun musical. So on our journey through life, as we travel, where we're not sure, how long, whatever, how much are we carrying? I'm sure you've all seen this kind of thing at airports. Sometimes people are moving, like they're totally going and setting up life in a new spot. Sometimes they're on a 2-week vacation. And this is what they're taking with them. So what are we carrying on our journey through life? So these are some lessons my sister shared, lessons she learned while walking the Camino and carrying all her own stuff. She didn't need half of what she started off with. She thought she'd packed light, and she realized, I have not used this thing that I thought I needed. And looking back at her own life and her own house, she didn't need 1/100th of what was at her house. And that's not my garage, but it could be. So, shopping. There's not a lot of opportunity to shop on the Camino. You can buy food and a few essentials, but there's not like big shopping things. And she realized as she walked day after day after day, 15, 20 miles a day, that in her normal life, she spent a lot of time thinking about shopping. Too much time. Worrying if this would fit with what she already had. And as she walked, she looked at something, and it was cute, and she thought, I'm going to have to carry that. And she decided most of the time she didn't need it, and she kept going. Appearances, something else she learned along the way. She didn't need to have like fancy clothes. Everybody's walking, everybody's wearing kind of basically the same outfit every single day. You do get a chance to wash it. And sunscreen and lip balm, way more important than cosmetics. Some people carry an awful lot of stuff with them, and that was one thing she decided. Did not need any makeup at all. Gifts. She bought a little crystal thing for her husband about halfway through, and she carried it for the next, 30, 40 miles or whatever it was. And carrying it and carrying that weight made it a lot more meaningful to her when she finally gave it to her husband when she got back to the States. And then she started thinking about what is a gift, what makes it valuable to me, and how can I make it valuable to the person I'm giving it to. And if it's just something you find and get right away, there's not as much invested in it. And so you might think about what gifts can we give each other that have meaning and are useful. And especially this time of year, I know there's, what'd you get for Christmas thing? And sometimes we get stuff we don't want, we don't need. And so we may want to take a look at what we're giving each other and the expectations of gifts. And one of the other things she learned was control about how much you're carrying. Obviously, you can go faster if you're not carrying a lot of stuff. Stuff is heavy. She could decide when to stop. I mentioned my niece was saying, well, when she gets to the hotel, her stuff will be waiting for her. That's assuming she actually gets to that hotel. So she had to keep walking just to catch up to her stuff. And if she'd hurt her foot or whatever, her stuff would have been there and she would have been here. So being separated from your stuff can be a problem. And so she, like my sister said, she never worried about her pack was. She knew it was on her back, sometimes too much, and everything she needed was with her. So on our journey through life, how much do we want to carry? This picture turned out a little fuzzier. There's a guy with a television strapped to his backpack there. I think that's a joke. So there's a verse from the Bible, from the letters to the Galatians, carrying each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. We've talked about what you're carrying yourself, but we are here to help each other, and sometimes we help other people carry stuff, and sometimes they help us. The final line on that, then they take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else, for each one should carry their own load. So there's sort of both of those happening there. Help other people carry their burdens, carry your own stuff too. So don't expect everybody else to carry all of your stuff, but be willing to help out when you can. So that can bring us to think about how much do we expect other people to carry for us? What are they taking care of? I know I rely on my husband to make coffee in the morning. It's just something he does, and that's what we've worked into. And how much are we carrying for other people? So again, the balance there, what can you carry for yourself? What can you ask someone else to help you with? We do not want to end up like this donkey. He's not going anywhere. There is absolutely no way you can carry too much stuff when it's that bad. His feet aren't even on the ground. So if you're burdened with all kinds of stuff, you cannot travel at all. And you're not good to yourself, you're not good to anybody else. And so that's a sign that you should set some things down. Letting go of stuff. What can we do with stuff? How do we unburden ourselves of things? Of course, you can sell it. And I had, my mother-in-law had made me this beautiful nativity set years ago. And she'd gone to ceramics classes and she'd painted it and it was lovely. And in our new house, we really didn't have a place to display it. And I realized I hadn't even unpacked it in the last 4 years. It had been sitting in a box. I thought, well, I'll sell it. And I put it up on Facebook and I tried to sell it and I got no takers. And I didn't want to drop the price because that seemed rude and not valuing all the work that my mother-in-law had put into this beautiful nativity set. So there I was. I'm like, I didn't want to sell it cheap, but I didn't want it. And my sister, Kate, said, well, why don't you give it away? I was like, oh, well, that's an idea. and if I give it away as a gift, again, the value, we've seen those ads, priceless, right? And I felt so much better about it, because if I'd even gotten $25 for it, the $25 isn't going to make that much a difference in my life, really. I don't need that money, and I couldn't sell it. I mean, it was probably, if you'd bought it in a shop, worth over 100 or something, but nobody was willing to buy it. So I gave it away. I put it up. I said, this is free to a good family. And this lady called me, and she came right away, and this is what she and her granddaughter did with it. The silver part here, these are the pieces my mother-in-law made. And she added, it's a little hard to see, a train track. There's a little train here. I think it's from Thomas the Tank Engine. There's a little plastic deer and Christmas tree. And so her granddaughter is having a really good time with this nativity set. And knowing that the nativity set is in a place where it's being loved and being used is priceless to me, way more worth money. So we may have stuff, and maybe you want to sell it. Maybe you can find people who are willing to buy it. Maybe you'll get more value from giving it away to someone who'll appreciate it, especially right now in our community where so many people have lost their homes. There may be places where your things can be appreciated. And so I encourage you to take a look at your house and your garage and your attic and your storage unit and under your bed and in all the places where we store our stuff, and say, do I need this? Can someone else use it? And find a place for it to go. Of course, there's physical stuff and there's emotional stuff. And sometimes the emotional baggage we carry is heaviest of all. Especially nobody else can see it. We can't see it. We may not realize how much we're carrying. This is an area I don't have any expertise in. You can forgive, you can process emotions, you can go to therapy. There's lots of ways to work through your emotions. In this book, which I mentioned earlier, Unbound Together, it's the tale of a woman who walks the Camino. She's been injured, her spine was injured, and she literally can't lift anything because of the damage. But it's not real obvious when you look at her. You can't tell she's been hurt. She wants to walk the Camino, but she needs to find someone else to carry her stuff for her. And she does. She hires this guy. She pays him extra, so he's got like a little wagon that he pulls with his stuff and her stuff. So she's not carrying physical weight, but she's carrying emotional weight. She feels guilty that she has to ask this guy to do this for her. She knows people look at her funny, thinking, what's wrong with her? How come she's not pulling her own weight? And she feels ashamed that her body isn't as strong as it used to be, that she can't. And she feels gratitude towards this guy, but they also don't get along very well. So then she's feeling sort of weird. There's this whole emotional baggage that she carries on the Camino with her. So many ways we can carry things. Some of it's physical, some of it's emotional. So that might be something to look into also. And I did want to say, my sister, again, Kate, said, that's a phrase she heard, tourists complain, pilgrims give thanks. She was at one of the albergues staying, and it was early in the walk, so many people hadn't really gotten into the rhythm of it, and they were complaining that the towels were scratchy, very, very rough towels. And my sister was like, oh, hot water, so excited to get, a hot shower. So she was thankful she had the hot shower. The people who were just starting were complaining because the towels were scratchy. So again, how do you approach your life? Do you complain? Do you give thanks for what's there? I'm hoping that this song clicks in. And this is a song someone wrote about being on the Camino. Matt, do I need to push that or do you? I got it. 1 second. Okay.
My literary companions told me things about myself, stopping, or they even sang to me. Receive the rain as blessing, the sun as praise from God. No longer do we count the miles to reach this field of stars. The journey is its own reward, and worth be ours. Santiago, 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 pray for me as I walk upon your Camino, searching for my destiny. Santiago de Compostela, the pilgrim saint endows a staff to guide my wandering, a hat to shade my brow. I ask that when you see me, fall down on bended knee. If miracles grow like flowers, save one small bloom for me. Santiago, 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 pray for me as I walk upon your Camino, searching for my destiny. Santiago, 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 pray for me as I walk upon your Camino, searching for my destiny. I've been dreaming of going back, and this year I plan to walk the Camino again. Of course, I realize now that the journey never really ends. Every moment of every day, we're all a little bit further down the road, and the best we can do is to walk at our own pace and be grateful for the opportunities we have to share the journey with each other. Whenever pilgrims on the Camino part ways, be it for a few hours or forever, they often say, Buen Camino. The literal translation is good walk or have a good walk, but it really means I wish you a wonderful life. Buen Camino.
People, and you think, well, everybody's walking the same path, but each book, like each life, is a little different, and everybody has a different experience as they walk the Camino. There's also a movie called The Way, which of course is one of the translations, and it's got Martin Sheen and his son Emilio Estevez, and the father is connecting with his son as he walks the Camino, and I recommend that. It's a good movie. It came out about, I think, 10 years ago. And one other thing I wanted to mention is this book. It's called The Dispossessed by Ursula Le Guin. She's a science fiction author. And she has created a society where ownership is taboo. People do not own things. And this is reflected in their language. They say, that's not my handkerchief. That's the handkerchief I use. And so they say, that's the one I use. They try to get rid of the me and the mine. You can't own things. We come into this world with nothing. We leave with nothing. You can't take it with you. And so in this book, the people try to live that way and not get attached to stuff. A very interesting world she creates there. I think I can get it to work. Matt, can I get one more slide? There we go. And so the final takeaway is a question to us to consider. Do we want to go through life as tourists or as pilgrims? Do we want to look for the sacred every day of our journey? Cultivate gratitude every day of our journey? Be kind to those you meet? Accept the companionship and the friendship they offer? Enjoy the experiences, the sun on your back, the beautiful flowers, the rain, rather than try to collect stuff that you have to carry and feel the weight of it. The experiences can be what you carry with you. And so those are some things to think about as we travel on, especially as this new year begins. And I guess I'm going to finish by saying to all of you, Buen Camino. And I think John's up. Yes.
Now we come to the part of the service where we give back. The church depends on the support of every member and friend. So please give as the church is valuable to you. We're not passing plates, but there are plates at each entrance. And thank you for your support. Thank you, Forrest. And thank you, Janeen, for giving us some ideas to think about being pilgrims instead of tourists as we go through life. Community news. We have a fundraiser going where we can buy tiles, which will be put up in the meditation garden. And you can put whatever you want on your tile or tiles. Any other community news that?
I was just going to say that in the newsletter, there's a reference and there's I don't know if the link is active, but if you copy the information, it will take you directly to the website. And we'll keep that in the newsletter for as long as the drive will be lasting.
Okay, yeah, for the tiles. Yeah, I did that, and it was difficult to figure out how to order.
Yeah, I did that too. So I decided I'd put that information in there.
It may be easier to do it on paper. Yeah.
People, it's a great way to do that.
John, there's some information I'd like to bring in.
Okay, today we need to take down the evergreen spiral, so we need help to do that. Yes. The guest at your table donations are due by the 9th. This month's third Sunday donation will be for local tornado relief. So go in peace, go in joy, and we're going to leave the online part of our service at this time. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you next week, either online or in person.